This video will explain the requirements for the written work that we do in class. First of all, I'll explain what goes in the journal and what's the journal used for. What do we do on paper that's not in the journal? How do you set up the journal? And then some hints and tips about how to do homework problems. Here's what the journal is for. All class notes go into the journal. Some do-nows I will ask you to do in the journal. Also, occasionally when you do homework or problems in class, rather than do all of the homework problems in the journal, I'll have you do some on paper and then copy just a couple of them into the journal after you've done them on paper to have neat examples that you can use for future reference. There may be other things, both in class and at home, that I may ask you to write in the journal, and I will be explicit about those when I make the assignments. Some of the things that we do in class are going to be done on paper rather than in the journal. And that may be some of the do-nows and classwork that I wish to collect at the end of the period, or practice problems where I may ask you to do 5 or 6 of the same type of problems. We don't have to have all of those in the journal. I may ask you to later copy 1 or 2 of them into the journal, but the practice problems could be done on paper. Also, the paper from your binder might be used as extra paper on tests and quizzes, should you not have enough room on the quiz form itself. And much of your homework will be done on paper rather than in the journal. Now, when you set up your journal, the first thing you should do is on the front cover, put your name and grade on the cover of the journal, and you should also write that this is your math journal. You can start taking notes at the very first page of the journal, although some people like to leave a blank page or two at the beginning just for some things that they need to reference frequently. Every time we start a new topic, I'll ask you to just use the next blank page in your journal. And we'll have a special section in the back of the journal for vocabulary, and I'll show you in a little bit how to set that up. When we take notes in class, the first thing you should do is always put a date on the outside corner of the page. That means the top right or the top left. You should write notes at the top of the page, so we'll know that it's notes. And you should write a title or something that will remind you about what comes next. Sometimes I'll give the title out in the beginning. Other times we'll ask you to put the title in later and just leave space for it when we begin. And here's an example of how you might take notes. If you're doing classwork, and this classwork applies to classwork that you do either in your journal or on paper, again, a date and the title of the assignment. If it's a worksheet, you would write the title of the worksheet. Otherwise, you just write the title of the assignment, which I will give you in class. If it's a textbook assignment that you're doing either on paper or in your journal, you're going to write down what the assignment was. For each problem, you want to restate the problem so you know what the original one was in the textbook. And if it's a word problem, you don't have to write out all of the words verbatim, and you don't have to write out all of the instructions verbatim. You can summarize them. The key is that you should be able to look at what you wrote and remember what the original problem was. Next, you should show your work, and that includes all of the arithmetic and all of the math steps. When we're working on a worksheet in class, again, whether we're doing it in the journal or on paper, you're going to put the date, the title of the worksheet, and then restate each problem. Usually worksheets won't have complicated instructions, and the problems will look something like this. Then show your work. if you made a table, if you drew a graph, if you did other arithmetic, make sure you show all that. Now for vocabulary, we're going to begin the vocabulary section in our journal at the end. Here's how we set it up. On the very last page, you make 3 columns. The term or concept that we're defining will go along the inside edge of the page, the edge closest to the center binding. The next column will be the definition of the word, and the last column will be an example. And here's an example of how to write a definition with a term and an example. So we write the term, slope-intercept form. The definition might look something like that. And then as an example, you might write y equals 1/2 x minus 7, indicating that the slope is 1/2 and the y-intercept is -7. Now, when the page is on the other side, on the right-hand side, then you want to make your 3 columns, but again, the term goes on the inside closest to the binding. Right? So the term or concept would go there, followed by the definition and the example. And for the same one, if you were writing it this way, you would write slope-intercept form here, you would write the definition, and then an example. Now, here are instructions about doing homework assignments. And again, this applies whether you do the homework assignment in your journal or on separate paper. First thing is you write homework and the due date, not the date that you did the homework, but the date that it's due, at the top of your paper. You then write the entire assignment, what the assigned problems were, and then you restate each problem. Okay? And again, you can paraphrase problems that have lots of words. The key is that you should be able to look at that problem and without checking with the book, remember what was asked of you. Then show your work underneath. There are going to be times when you don't understand how to do an assigned problem. And here's what I'd like you to do when that happens. First of all, write down the instructions for the original problem and what the specific problem was. Now in this case, the instructions preceded a group of problems, and the instructions were solve each equation for y, find the value of y for each value of x. The specific problem that you didn't understand was this one. This is exactly what was written in the textbook. This is the minimum that you should do when you don't understand how to do a problem. The next thing that I want you to do is write down a question that you could ask in class that would help you understand the problem. So a possible question is, what does solve for y mean? Or what is the meaning of the semicolon in that problem? If it's a word problem that you don't understand, I'd like you to copy the instructions if there are any and restate the problem. And here's an example of a problem that I've restated. The full problem was that you want to rent a hall in order to have a dance, and the charge for the rental was $1,500 for the first 3 hours, and then $125 for each hour thereafter. The total you had to spend was $2,125, and it wanted to know what the maximum number of hours were. That was the problem. Now, this problem appeared in a section on which there were inequality problems. And this student didn't understand how to write an inequality. So a good question might have been, I can solve this equation, but how do I express this as an inequality? I'd like to remind you that your question should reflect some understanding of the problem. You need to reference some aspect of the problem in your question so I know that you actually read it and I know that you've spent time trying to understand what the problem was. These are not questions. I don't get it, or I can't do it, or just writing a question mark. Those are not acceptable responses when you don't understand how to do a problem. I also want to reassure you that there will be no penalty on your homework assignment if you write down the problem and write down a question that you can ask in class.